Just a story that, kind of grabs your attention when you see it, because it's not kind of thing you think about necessarily every day. Turns out more Canadians over 100 years of age, centenarians, are now claiming their pensions than ever. In fact, more than twice as many as only a decade ago. So great, but of course, along with living longer comes the need for more money to be able to live. Probably for longer than maybe we have planned. Certainly, I think that's the case 25, 30 years ago, generation ago. So how do you do that? We thought we'd try to get some tips here. Cindy Marques is a certified financial planner, co-founder of Makecents, and is on the line. Thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here, Aaron.
So let me begin by first of all saying, they tell you before you get to retirement age, think about making a plan. And of course, back then, when I say back then, a generation ago, most people, if they were lucky, thought they could retire by 65, maybe live another 15, 20 years. And now we're finding out, as I said just off the top, more and more Canadians are living over the age of 100. That's not what you planned, to have your money go with you. So what are you supposed to do in a case like this? How do you do a better job of it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think even today, a lot of individuals approaching retirement maybe think of federal pensions, and they hear the word pension and they assume, well, they got me. Pension is forever. At a bare minimum, that'll cover me. But I think perhaps Canadians overestimate what they might get from federal pensions, and certainly from other forms of pensions, like a defined benefit pension you might get from work. That is becoming a lot more rare. You're not seeing things like defined benefit pensions in the workplace as often. And that's another example of a forever pension, a forever annuity that doesn't run out. For other sources of income, it's up to you to manage those investments, and that could very well run out, and they tend to. So it's hard to plan for living very long when most of your income sources, it's up to you to make sure it doesn't run out.
It's interesting. It seems to me people would have told you, or accountants, or maybe even the government suggesting, maybe a better idea, wait longer before you start thinking about taking out your pension. Instead of 65, maybe wait till 70, kind of push you right to the end. So that, I guess, in and of itself, probably not a bad idea. But how do you, if you're collecting a pension right now, right? Let's say you've reached that age where you're eligible. How long do you collect for?
If you're collecting a government pension, a federal pension, CPP or OAS, that is indefinite. So as long as you live, that will pay out, and they're both indexed to inflation. So CPP indexed annually, OAS indexed quarterly. So as long as inflation goes up, your pension will go up alongside of that. So at a bare minimum, that won't run out on you. And, if we're thinking about, let's quantify that, how much can you actually expect to receive? If you're fortunate to have maxed out on CPP and OAS, best case scenario, we're looking at roughly $2,000 a month in today's dollars. Of course, that's indexed. So, is $24,000 a year enough? Well, you can delay it. CPP can be delayed as late as 70. It'll be augmented by up to 42% if you wait. You can also delay OAS. That'll be augmented up to 36% if you wait until 70. So now, again, if you're eligible to max out on both, we're looking at roughly $3,000 a month by that point, if you wait to 70. And again, that's $36K a year. But I argue, is that enough? Does that make a dignified retirement? And for most Canadians, absolutely not. But at a minimum, that's a layer of income that won't run out on you.
So let's assume you're saying, wow, I had no idea, and no, I don't think in 10 years from now that will be enough for me. When do you start deciding, okay, I'm not going to be able to live comfortably on that money alone, and what else should you be considering doing if that's the case?
Well, hey, if you're eligible for any kind of employer-sponsored retirement benefit program where your employer is going to match your contributions, no matter how far out from retirement you are, that's free money being matched and essentially doubling your efforts towards savings there on behalf of your employer. So that's a missed opportunity that I see sometimes, and I do work in that space where there's individuals who have been with their employer for many years. They got a lot of tenure. They've been eligible for these programs for quite some time, but they simply weren't aware of that. And now they've missed out on years of compounding, on years of contributions on behalf of their employer. So I encourage anyone hearing me say this right now to talk to their HR reps and inquire about these things. That's an opportunity to increase your efforts there towards retirement.
Yeah, the idea being, don't wait for your employer to tell you that. You better go ahead and do that digging on your own.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Chances are you were told when you were, onboarded to the company, but maybe there's a 6 months, waiting period before you're eligible, and then you just forget about these
Right.
things, and they may not proactively be reminding you.
If you're lucky enough to be able to top up an RSP or a TFSA, obviously the thought should be to do that as well if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're using your RSP, then the plus side is you're getting additional tax deductions today, and that tax savings means, hey, that's extra money that I can also throw back into the RSP or TFSA. And if the TFSA is your focus, well, at least at a minimum, in retirement, when you're pulling that money out, it is entirely tax-free. You're not worried about that extra tax burden, and it's not going to impede on your OAS payments because there is a threshold to a maximum amount of income you can receive in retirement before they start to claw that benefit back as well. So that's something to consider.
Just as a last question, so you deal with people in a practice, or when you hear from people who are asking you questions, what's the number one question they're asking you? Saying they've stopped working, they're in retirement, their health is good, they imagine they could live even longer they'd planned. What do they ask?
Honestly, it's usually surrounding what retirement would cost in general and pricing out those numbers. Mm-hmm. I think mistakenly, a lot of people may assume that retirement is going to cost them less than their life will now. But I often argue, and I pry there, I'm like, well, what does retirement look like for you? And in a lot of cases, those first 10 to 15 years, the cost of retirement might be the same as your life today or perhaps even higher because you're trying to check off your bucket list and do all the traveling you didn't get around to doing. And that costs money. And when you're done with traveling, maybe you're not physically able anymore, well, those traveling costs might actually get replaced with additional healthcare costs. So I don't know with certainty that you can bank on your retirement actually costing less than your life does now. It could be, or it could cost more. It's probably a fair assumption to make that whatever your life costs you today, you should assume the same case for retirement.
Wow. Okay. Now you have you have a website?
I do.
Okay. If people want to go get some information there, where do they go?
You can find me at cindymarques.com and my last name, Marques.
cindymarques.com. If you want any advice, any information, I'm sure you'd be happy to give it. Cindy, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.